Before I start, I'll also be giving a land acknowledgement. So the community of Booth University College is located on the traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Assiniboine, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homelands of the Métis Nation. This land is within Treaty 1. We acknowledge there is a meeting place of community and culture. As in the past, the diversity of people who occupy this land and the emerging culture that enrich our community today present us the invitation to build a stronger community as we learn to walk gently with one another in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. Just go to the next slide. So in regards to who is presenting, so Nicolette is our international admissions counselor. You'll be seeing her later in the next few slides. As well, Beth is the admissions counselor for high school and Salvationist students. As well, I am the admissions counselor for mature and transfer students. So based on the communication you've had it with one of the three of us based on which category you fall under. So we're just going to take a virtual tour since you guys haven't gotten the chance to physically see our school. This will kind of give you an idea what it looks like.
Hi there, and welcome to Booth University College. Booth UC is a private Christian institution in the heart of downtown Winnipeg. We combine Christian faith and rigorous scholarship with a commitment to education for a better world. If you are looking for a supportive and connected student community, Booth UC is the perfect place. Being in downtown Winnipeg means you can walk to places like the Forks, the Winnipeg Art Gallery, and Bell MTS Place. Let's take a look at why so many of our students call this place home. The main campus building, or the Waldron Building, is located at 447 Webb Place. Our front desk and student services team are available as you walk in. If you need a question answered, this is the place to be. Located right off the main entrance is the Commons. It's a student space where you can study, watch TV, or play pool. Also conveniently located on the main floor is one of the most popular gathering places at Booth UC, Booth Bistro. The bistro offers fantastic food at great prices. At Booth UC, your academic success is highly important to us. Located in the basement is Booth UC's Academic Learning Center. The ALC provides in-person and virtual support, email appointments, workshops, and study sessions. Our film lab is also in the basement level and offers a comfortable place for English and film studies students to view new releases and classic films. This is Booth UC's Social Work Lab. Booth UC's social work students use this lab to facilitate learning. They can take part in group video sessions, practice their skills, and receive feedback from professors. At Booth UC, you are more than just a number. That is why our maximum class capacity is 50 students. Our focus is on creating student-centered small classes where you will quickly get to know your professors and classmates. The Hetherington Chapel is host to our weekly community gatherings, student worship band, and Bible study group. If you're in need of a quiet study space or an area to hang out with friends, our third floor lounge is a great spot. Or if you want some fresh air, our rooftop patio is a great spot to study during the warmer months. Need to get in touch with your professor? Faculty offices are conveniently located in 2 wings on the 3rd floor. Living on campus is very affordable, and your monthly fee includes a meal plan at our bistro. Residence is on the upper floors of our main campus building. Each floor has great common areas to cook, watch TV, lounge, and do laundry. Located a short walk from the Waldron Building is Peterson Hall, newly renovated in 2015. Here you will find state-of-the-art classrooms, our school for continuing studies, and our library. One of the main hubs at Booth UC is the John Fairbank Memorial Library. A great feature of Booth UC's academic program is that each student is assigned their own personal librarian. If you're looking for a quality university experience that focuses on your individual needs, one that brings together Christian faith, and a passion for learning and service. You'll find it at Booth University College.
So that should kind of give you an idea of what our school looks like. One thing I love about Booth is where it's located. So it's located in downtown Winnipeg, really at the heart of the city. It's a pretty short walk from unique shops and cafes. There's a bunch of outdoor parks and some of the city's best restaurants. As well, if you are a commuter student, it's awesome because there is the blue bus line that comes pretty often. So it comes almost every 15 minutes. So you really can't even miss the bus. And I'll be handing it off to Beth, who will tell you guys a bit of fast facts about Booth.
Thanks, Eliza. My name is Beth. I've been in conversation with a few of you. Some fast facts about our university is that we have an average class size of 14 students. That means our classes are intimate and small, engaging, and you get a lot of one-on-one time with your professor as well as your colleagues and peers in your class. We have a very diverse student population with people that come to study at Booth from all over the world. Every student is assigned a student advisor who's a faculty member who will help carve out and tailor your course selection as you go through the program. And we will also touch a little bit on tuition and scholarships a little bit further in this presentation. So here's an example. This is a class at the Peterson Hall. Just a nice little snapshot of what our class sizes look like. You get to know your professors and classmates and have a very in-depth learning experience, as opposed to a larger institution where you might be one out of a few hundred in an auditorium at some of the larger institutions. And 100% of our academic advisors are faculty members. Our professors are super approachable, and our classroom setting is small. Here's a little snapshot of our student council. So Booth University College is a really vibrant learning community, and there are a lot of ways to get involved. There are special activities and events such as paint nights, pancake breakfasts, toy drives, just to name a few. And if there's a club or a group that you want to join, but that doesn't exist yet, there's a lot of opportunity for your input. We love when students get involved. It's what makes the community a great place to belong in. So let's take a peek. Oh, go ahead. I'll pass it over to Nicolette and she can tell you a little bit more.
Okay. Some of you may have spoken to me before. I'm Nicolette, the International Admissions Counselor. And just to get right into it, so why would anyone want to come and study social work at Booth College? Why would anyone want to begin their journey in social work or continue their journey in social work? This video is sorry. So this video is Dr. Alexander Sawatsky, who is the director of the School of Social Work, and he will be telling you more about that.
My name is Alexander Sawatsky. I'm the director of the School of Social Work at Booth University College. Our social work program is grounded in the realities of practice In fact, we frequently
All right, sorry about this. We're running it through VPN and it's buffering like crazy. So just 1 second, I'll let it buffer for a minute and you can listen to me talk for a second. Alex is going to be joining me for a fireside chat later on in the presentation. So you'll be able to hear from him directly. not just on a horribly buffered video. And if this video doesn't work, then I will ask him the exact same question and you can hear him answer it live. So that's our plan B. I'll give it one more shot, and if it doesn't work, then I think we'll just move on and I will ask him why social work at Booth UC be my first question.
We hear from practitioners in the field that our students are highly sought due to how well prepared they are for direct practice. One of the reasons for this is our small class sizes. Students are able to complete learning.
And that's all she wrote, folks. We're going to wait and ask him the question at the end. Sorry for the difficulties, but it happens.
Okay. I guess we'll just continue then. There are a couple ways to apply to the Bachelor of Social Work program at Booth College. So we have the direct entry, the transfer entry after degree, and as well as the 2+2 program. I'll pass it over to Beth to talk about a couple of these programs.
Yeah, so I'll talk and touch on the high school entry requirements. So next slide. It's also called the direct entry. We have a high school entry where you can come straight from grade 12, provided that you meet the requirements, which are an 80% average in 5 of your 40S graduating grade 12 courses, as well as an 80% in grade 12 English. And 5 of those full 40S courses must be and include English language arts, math, sciences, social sciences, or the humanities. So a little bit more detail on that. Courses such as music, art, visual arts, and physical education are not included in going towards those 5 full 40S credits. And another piece to this is that high school grades alone do not guarantee direct entry. Applicants must also complete the social work program admissions requirements, which we will go into more detail on in coming slides. As well, new graduates are defined as those individuals graduating in the current academic year, so 2013, as well as the previous academic year. So any grads from 2022 are eligible for direct entry. And then the last requirement for a high school entry is to have work or volunteer experience to add to your application.
So I will be discussing a little bit about the transfer entry. So let's say you've already studied at another university. This is where you decide, okay, maybe Booth is a good option to transfer to. So you have the option to transfer a maximum of 60 credit hours to Booth University College. This also depends on your transcript. Once we receive your transcript, we'll have it evaluated by the registrar, and then we'll see how many credits you can kind of continue with. So upon successful completion of the social work admission process, you'd be admitted into your second or third year of studies at Booth. So this is the special 2+2 entry. So this is for students that have previously were going to Providence University College or Steinbach Bible College. So they have the opportunity to be allotted up to 51 approved credit hours in their arts and sciences, and then they can kind of transition into completing their bachelor's of social work at Booth, which is an awesome option. Pass it over to Nicolette.
Okay. So for the after degree entry pathway, the student would need a first degree, and the first degree has to be in humanities, social sciences, or something that would be a suitable preparation for you while coming into the program. Because I've had questions from students who studied geology and they're asking if they could come into social work. Unfortunately, that's not a really good program. So your first degree has to be something that is related to social work, at the very least. And the minimum CGPA is the same 2.5 on the last 60, since we're evaluating your first degree. It should be your last 60 credits, and it has to be at least a 2.5 CGPA. For international students, the requirements are pretty much the same. Couple differences, I guess. For high school, 40S and 40U, it may not really make sense, but then what we're basically, the equivalent of what you have in your country is what you use to apply if you're coming from high school. And your average needs to be at least 80%. Another thing as well for international students is that if your country is not exempt from providing an English test, you would need to provide us with either the IELTS, TOEFL, or Pearson test of English. I think those are the only differences for international students, but I will pass it over to Eliza or Beth.
Thanks. Just getting my mouse to move over. So here's the fun part, the application process. So the application components include your transcript submission, your resume, your personal statement, which is like a paper. I'll get into that in a second, and references. Looking a little bit closer, let's begin with the transcript. So you've probably began the application process, and when you do, we'll ask you for an unofficial transcript. This is a copy of your grade 12 graduating marks, or an unofficial transcript showing your marks from another institution if you have post-secondary study. A JPEG or a PNG form is acceptable to submit to us by attachment to email. And once you've submitted your unofficial transcript, we will take a peek at it. And as it goes through the process, we'll then reach out for the official transcript. And that means that the student, you will request an official transcript sent from any academic institution, high school, or post-secondary, and have it submitted directly from one institution to Booth University College. And that can be done by email. It can be sent directly to admissions@boothuc.ca, or it can be sent by mail post to 447 Webb Place. We ask that you submit a resume. This is a component to your social work application. It describes your previous education, your work, your volunteer experience. So very much like you would present a resume for a job, you would identify your employment and work and volunteer experiences, and make sure that you try to tailor it and relate it to social or human services. So the references, we ask that you provide 2 references. These can be 2 work or volunteer references, or 1 work and volunteer, work/volunteer, with 1 academic reference. So an academic reference would be like a professor or a high school teacher, someone that can speak to your abilities. And we ask that you have collected the emails from these references, because we will submit a reference check through that email, and also to give your reference a heads up that you will be using their contact information to provide a reference for you for the social work program. I would recommend you do what you can to have relevant work experience, but any work or volunteer reference is suitable for your application. Here's a little example of what might constitute a good or a bad reference. It's kind of in the same vein as applying for a job. A good reference is someone who's seen your employment, maybe supervised you, a volunteer supervisor, practicum supervisor, professionals, a current professor or a former professor if you're going to use an academic reference. And then some examples of references you'd want to stay away from is anyone who's super close to you, like a family member or a friend. That would be considered a conflict of interest. We want to be able for your reference to speak to your professional suitability for the program. So your personal statement, this is kind of the centerpiece of your application. You want to make sure that you really fine tune it, go over it in good detail, double check it. It should be 4 double-spaced pages, academic style, and please have it typed in 12-point new Times New Roman or Calibri font, no large spaces in between paragraphs or altering the margins. If you need to cite something or use a reference, to do so in an academic style. One question I've had a few times is I statements usable? Can you use I statements in your personal statement? And the answer would be yes. We want you to be able to speak to why you're a suitable candidate for the social work program and why you envision yourself as a future social worker. Pass it back to Eliza.
Thank you. So I will actually just be discussing a few important dates. If you have a pen and paper, these are some good dates to note down. So I think my students know very well that I really emphasize the April 30th deadline for the social work application. After this day is over, like you can't make any edits or you can't even submit your application. As well, I can once again speak for my students. I haven't heard back from too many people interested in scholarships, so you still have time to apply for scholarships and funding if you haven't done so already. It's a good time, like a lot of people hesitate to apply for scholarships, so there's always money that you can apply for. As well, June 30th is like when all of the coursework would be complete and you'd most likely hear back from us in terms of admission. And then September 1st is when you've already been accepted, and then we are just asking for the last check. So that could be like the child abuse registry check, adult vulnerable person, and just other checks for you to be ready for the social work program. So here is a layout of the tuition and fees. When comparing the costs of tuition in Manitoba in comparison to other schools, Booth UC has the second lowest priced domestic undergrad program. If you can see the total under estimated tuition and fees under per year, it's $9,480 in total. So the tuition and fees are calculated based on a number of factors, including but not limited to students living on campus, it could be incidental fees, and of course the course load is calculated by 10 courses here. If you choose to take less or more courses, obviously the amount would vary. As well, this is the international tuition and fees. It comes out to $13,590 as well. It's not limited to incidental fees and other fees like that. And Nicolette could probably attest, give you more information about that. And I will be passing it back to Nicolette again.
Okay. So another perk of coming to school at Booth is your personal librarian. And if you have difficulties, researching a database, or you're looking for assistance finding the right book, librarians are here. They are here to help you through the whole process. If you need help with your papers, if you need help with references for your papers, the librarians are here to also help you. If you need help finding the book, they're here to help you. And you can book an appointment and they will sit with you and walk you through the process. So, that's just, a perk of coming to Booth College. I would pass it over to Georgine, because now we're going into the fireside chat. So Georgine, take it over from here.
we start that, I want to open up the floor and just see if there's any questions from anybody. You can unmute yourself or you can write a question in the chat. I noticed there weren't any questions in the chat yet, but I would love to hear from you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in 1 second so that we don't have to worry about that. Does anybody have any questions? Has to be, will we hear by June by email or mail? Very good question. The decisions are made generally earlier than June, probably middle of May, 3rd week of May, and you will hear by email. So you'll know right away. And after that, you'll need to submit a deposit if you want to secure your spot. And you'll have to sign a suitability, let's see, Beth, what are those documents called, or Eliza, Nicolette? Professional suitability documents, I believe, and they'll be included in your offer package. So those are the 2 things you need to complete before the summer takes hold and you finish all of your conditions of your applications, like sending in an official transcript if you haven't yet done that. So that is a very, so you should hear by the 3rd week in May. Dana says, after completing a BSW with Booth, am I eligible to apply for grad studies? Yes, you are eligible to apply for grad studies. There are certain schools which take graduates right out of university, right out of Booth University College, and there are some where you need to do some other courses. And that is a good question for Alex. So I will get Alex to speak to that when I have my fireside chat with him. How many are accepted into the program? We're accepting a little over 50 this year, but that includes existing Booth University College students who are taking the pre-BSW program, not just those who are coming in as a transfer or as an after degree. Can you apply for scholarships? Yes, you can apply for the scholarship as long as you have started an application. Even without securing admissions, yes, you have to, because we haven't yet offered you admission to Booth. So you indeed have to apply for the scholarship before you get an offer of admission. So I encourage you to do so. There are a number of scholarships for folks, and I will get one of the admissions counselors to put the link to the scholarship page in the chat program. And at this point, I'm going to, I see that Alex has joined us. And so perhaps we'll segue into the fireside chat, and he and I can have a little bit of a conversation, and then depending on time, we can stick around and answer the rest of your questions. If that works for everybody, I think that is what we will do. Welcome, Alex. Oh, you're muted. There you are. Dr. Sawatsky, I should say. So welcome. I'm going to give a little bit of an intro because you're a bit of a superstar. So we want to... Dr. Sawatsky, or Alex as he's known to most, has 20 years of experience in mental health. He holds a master's of social work from Andrews University, and he received his PhD in social work from the University of Manitoba. So while in practice, he's worked in crisis stabilization, counseling, case management, administration, and his passion for teaching includes mental health, addictions, ethics, as well as policy and advocacy. Furthermore, he's interested in critical theories and their application to social work practice, including structural, anti-oppressive, and communalistic critiques. He desires to address the needs of those with severe and persistent mental illness that remain the focal point of his teaching approach. He currently serves on the Manitoba College of Social Work and the Manitoba Schizophrenia Society Board of Directors. Past committee memberships include the Steering Committee for Opportunities for Employment, as well as the Quality of Care Committee for Sarah Riel. His favorite hobbies include running, and even more running. And then he says, oh, and singing in the choir. So welcome, Alex, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, happy to take some time to talk with you all. I don't know, obviously, what you've already covered, so I don't necessarily need, again, you can correct me if I'm going in the wrong direction here.
Well,
so I'm sure, I think there's something in the chat here.
he is the teacher, so we'll let him look at the chat. If you want to answer some of the questions ahead of the fireside chat, you're welcome to, or we can do a Q&A and then come back to the questions, whichever you prefer. This is sort of an informal.
Yeah, no, I'll go by your flow. I mean, you sort of did an introduction already, and that's, I appreciate that. What probably I should add to that is that a lot of my, before I came to Booth, which was 17 years ago, a lot of my, or all of my experience really came from the US, where I practiced social work in the community mental health setting. So I always say that sort of as a when I'm in class, I usually tell that ahead of time, just so people know kind of my frame of reference. So when I talk about social work theories, they tend to sort of blend from the two countries. Unfortunately, I'm going to say there isn't a lot of differences sometimes, which is the reason why I tend to say that social work exists because of the fact that we live in a broken world. It'd be nice if we weren't needed. In fact, I usually say that to students when they start is, ideally, and I used to say this to my staff when I used to run a program in the States, ideally, you should work yourself out of a job. You should become unnecessary. Then you're doing the right thing. If you create dependency, then you're doing the wrong thing for the wrong reason. It's really about that. So I'm okay, like I said, either way, going with, I know there were some questions ahead of time that you kind of sent my way, Georgine, so I can certainly respond to those first. But
launch into some of those. We tried to play your video, the 1-minute video that we had recorded, and it buffered a lot. So I said that what I would do is I would speak to you in person, virtually, to answer the question, why Booth UC? What makes Booth University College unique from other social work programs?
Sure. Yeah. Did you need me also to pause and lag every so often so it feels like I'm buffering, or is it okay just to...
If you could make a few mistakes like I did, that would be great.
No worries. This is all live, right? So you'll know it's not, I guess, prefab or rehearsed. So why Booth? Why Booth UC and why social work? I think that's where we're going, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think it's fascinating to me when I first came to Canada. Even that question I found baffling. Is there's so many programs in the States. In fact, where I got my master's was actually in Berrien Springs, Michigan, was actually a campus that was founded by the Seventh-day Adventist, and so. Again, the idea that sort of faith and practice and social work go hand in hand seemed kind of assumed already. So when I came to Canada, I discovered that Booth University College is the only Christian social work program in the entire country. I was kind of surprised by that, to be honest. But I would say that's certainly one of the things that stands out to me is there is that faith component, which is a fascinating component to explore, because what it does is it sort of what's the right word? It's sort of like, how, and I'm going to throw this out there as sort of a way to maybe start us there, but as most of us probably know, there's certain rules when you're in a party or you're talking to other people, and there's certain topics we're supposed to all avoid, right? Because you're not supposed to talk politics, you're not supposed to talk, religion and those kinds of things because they're considered taboo. What I like about a Christian social work program is that we lean into that and say, yeah, you know what, we're actually going to talk about that. And as you will learn, if you decide that social work is for you, a lot of the problems that we run into is because part of our role, I think, and I'm assuming some of this is not necessarily unique to social work at Booth, but we try to cultivate a professional sense of self. Like, who are you? A less artful way that I sometimes put it in class is, you are a tool. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that as in a, you're the resource. You're the actual thing that you're going to use is going to be you. And so what we don't want to do is we want to challenge you to explore any of your, for lack of a better way of putting it, any of your blind spots, the things that you normally don't look at. So taboos include faith and how you make meaning of your life. And the reality is in the past, I think we've always said that, professionals need to be neutral and we shouldn't bring our own values in. But that's silly because we all have them and we can't just pretend that they're not there. We can't just sort of cut them out of our lives and then be there with somebody else listening to their story and not put our own stuff in there. So what we do is in our program is we lean into that taboo to be able to say, this is actually something we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the ways in which your own faith, whatever it is, we're not telling you what that is. You have to know what that is, but we're going to help you have that be an asset rather than a detriment to you. It's going to help you keep from burning out because the kind of work that you do in this field can be very tough. It's going to sensitize you to understanding what other people are talking about when they talk about suffering, because when people are depressed, one of the obvious questions they're going to say is, why me? Whatever that why me is going to, it's going somewhere. And if we are uncomfortable with that, then we cannot be fully present with them and their suffering and help them make sense of that and walk them through that. It's not about, converting anybody or you know what I mean? Like keeping a checklist of how many souls you've saved. We even talk about that. We talk about how problematic in the past that history that social work has with the Christian faith, right? We'll talk about things like the 60s scoop as a very obvious example of the damage done. But that doesn't mean you just sort of cut it out of your life entirely and pretend it's not there. That's not a solution. So one of the distinctives of our program, I think, is that, as well as that we are quite well known in the community for having a very strong clinical focus. Not all undergraduate programs go this far to really lean into a generalist practitioner model where you have some actual sort of skills that you can use directly upon graduation in the field. In fact, it's not unusual actually for students to be in a practicum placement and have this wonderful problem of getting a job offer and then going, well, what now, right? I'm not done yet with this degree and already I'm being offered. Because it is true that we have cultivated over decades a very strong relationship in the community, in the professional community, also with the Manitoba College of Social Workers through board representation, but also through the work that our students do, that we actually get employers literally reaching out to us during the school year and saying, you got anyone for us? We have some jobs that we're thinking about. So that relationship is based on the fact that when our graduates complete their degree, they actually know how to do some of the paperwork. They actually know how to do an assessment. They actually know how to communicate, how to be punctual, how to be professional in a way that stands up and above the shoulders of other programs. And we've had to do that, and we're proud of that. So I think one of the reasons I would say, if you're interested in doing this work and you want to hit the ground running, our program is going to equip you. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. You can always feel free and reach out to MCSW even and ask them about our program. I have no concerns that you'll hear some good things about us. I kind of rambled a bit there, Georgina. I don't know if that's all you wanted.
No.
You can certainly say more, but
covered a number of points that some of the questions that we had and some of the things I wanted to talk about. So that was perfect. You talked about the Manitoba Association of Social Workers, and I'm wondering if you could address, because there is one of the questions, two things. Number one, can our Bachelor Social Work students, once they graduate, go and take a master's? That's part A. So I'm going to get you to answer that. And then part B is about accreditation. because that does come up every once in a while. So there was a question, do we become licensed registered social workers when after they study at Booth? So if I can get you to tackle A, the master's question, and then B, the accreditation question, that would be great.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if that's the right order because they're so related to each other.
Well,
so I may
yeah,
be
or both
in and
at
out
the
of that.
same.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I think it's legitimate for people to ask the question, like, if you're not an accredited program, how can I continue on for a degree afterwards in the field of social work? And I think that's a legit question to ask. So maybe I'll back up and just talk about accreditation first and then sort of connect the dots. But so what's been going on for the last, well, I can say from my perspective, the last 17 years, but it's been longer than that. There's been an ongoing attempt for quite a long time to work with the Canadian Association of Social Work Educators, who are the accrediting body in the country. And initially, a lot of the reasons why they were unwilling to consider us is because they had a criteria where you had to be a member of what's called Universities Canada. I think it used to be called Campus Canada. I'm trying to remember the original title was, but it's an association that a lot of schools, universities are part of. So that's an association. And that association has actually said that they're not anything else but an association. However, their requirements to be a part of that association include that you have to have at minimum, you have to be able to show that you have 500 full-time equivalent students. So a lot of small schools haven't been able to muster that number. And so over the last, I would say maybe 10 years or so, there's been a growing sort of discontent around that. And so now the Canadian Association of Social Work Educators, as of 2020, has issued a statement saying that they will open the door to smaller programs like ours. Unfortunately, COVID is also happening around this time, and they are actually backed up. So the reason we haven't pursued recently is because we're waiting on them just to say yes, and then we'll proceed. But one thing doesn't mean the other thing doesn't happen anyways. We've been existing without that status quite well for decades, and like I said, have the esteem of our colleagues throughout the province and employers. And there are schools in Canada as well as in the US that have taken our students. And as of this moment, I can tell that there are multiple graduates who've gone on for the master's. So tracking all those, I would lose track of how many that is, but there are several that have gone on for their PhD and have completed it. So, and they started off as BSW students, have graduated from here and went on. So the path is not as straightforward as it would be if we were an accredited program, but it is not an all or nothing kind of thing. So a non-accredited program like ourselves has been able to demonstrate that even with that limitation, it doesn't mean that students cannot continue on and actually move all the way to the terminal degree with this degree. What I usually say to students is, if that is your path, if that's what you want to do, please let us know that so that we can communicate with you what are the different options. Because we're keeping track of the number of schools over time that have opened the door to us. And so we would want to communicate that to you so that you know where you could go and what you could do. So anyway, that's a kind of a way of answering it, I think. I hope it's not too convoluted, but that's how I was thinking those two things might fit together there.
So to become an RSW, a registered social worker, there's a licensing exam, correct?
That is correct.
Some really good results with that. In fact, weren't we number one in North America?
You're close. Number one in the country.
Number one in Canada, the results for Booth students, and number two in North America.
Yeah. These numbers.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say these numbers get generated, and so we get reports of it so often. And MCSW, the Manitoba College of Social Workers, that lets graduates be registered members of that college, have called us an approved program rather than an accredited program. And by that, what they're doing is they're basically treating us like any other university that's accredited, with the caveat that our students sit for what's called the Associated Social Work Boards, ASWB, practice exam for the BSW. that's a North America-wide exam that a lot of provinces already do. I believe BC, it's mandatory for anybody to do it. And in the US, it's actually very common. Like you just expect that to be the case, that you have to complete that, because they also have tiered licensing and so on. In any case, the average pass rate, if you'll go to like big universities and look around, also in the US, like they'll sometimes put that in there. They'll say, hey, if you go to our school, you know, we have a really robust exam pass rate for people. And it usually hovers between 75 and 80% is when they'll say that those are good numbers. So the last report that we received was a report that was looking at all the exams that were done in this province in roughly the last, I think it was 8 or 9 years. And the pass rate was 90.9%. And when I looked around, and you know, you can go ASWB yourself, and I think you can look at that website and you can look at the report if you want. And if you hover over other provinces or other states in the US, we come in first place here in the country and second in the entire continent. So what we do is, part of our value added is that we also provide workshops in the final semester for students on how to take the exam, so that they can do well. So far the numbers have been very encouraging, and again, we've always said this, that our reputation really is being made by our students. So they're making a name for us, and we're very, very proud of that.
Thank you so much, Alex. That is awesome. So I have a question. If I've already got a degree, let's say I've got a psychology degree,
okay,
and I'm working part-time, and I know, you know, the job market is pretty good. Why would I go back and get a social work degree? Like, what doors open in the after degree program for me when I get my social work degree that don't open for me right now?
So yeah, it's a good, and I think it's a valid question. So I'll answer it one way, and then if there's more questions, feel free. Back, I want to say maybe it was 2009 or so, when the province moved from a voluntary to a mandatory regulatory framework for social work. Basically, what it means is that if you call yourself a social worker in the province, you have to be a registered social worker. So that already restricts some opportunities for people. And while some have managed to hold on to their employment after that became mandatory, it's a grandparented process, which I don't think necessarily people know what that means always. And I can only tell you from also my time as having been involved in that process with MCSW, being involved in during that time, helping bring that forward as a regulatory framework, as well as being on the appeal committee later on when people were trying to grandparent their status. It doesn't go with you. So if you are somewhere and you're employed and you are able to demonstrate, or had it during that period where there was like an opening for people to claim their registration as a social worker without the education, it was only tied to their employer and their employment position. If they left that position, they would not be able to register as a social worker again unless they had a social work degree. So there's already an incentive there, if you're interested in this field of practice, to do that. There's also other realities out there. So I can tell you, for example, from the mental health landscape, because I keep one foot in the door in the practice field myself, which is another thing I'm going to say, but I think that's important that our sessionals, as well as myself, maintain some kind of ongoing experience, so that you're getting something recent and not something that I did 20 years ago. It's kind of useless otherwise. So what I'm trying to say is that there has been a bit of a shift in positions in mental health and what's expected for you to be able to practice. So people with psychology degrees with undergraduate psychology degrees have kind of found out, unfortunately, that some of those positions now require you to have a degree that allows you to be regulated by a profession. And the undergraduate in psychology doesn't have that framework, at least not in this province. So if you want to work in mental health, a bachelor's in social work with an after degree within 2 years gets you right plugged into that. And it would be a reason for you to want to pursue that if that's what you're thinking of.
Okay, yeah, there is no regulatory body, and not to say that our Bachelor of Psychology is not a good degree, let me tell you.
I have a psychology degree, you know.
We offer it too.
Yeah, my undergraduate is a psychology degree, so I'm not trying to knock it.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though
No, and I wasn't either.
yeah,
So
well, even
I
though
should have said,
say,
yeah.
I have a psychology degree, but then I got better.
And again, we won't tell the psychology profs that.
No,
Yeah,
don't tell Dr. Curtis.
we all have a healthy sense of humor too, because sometimes the work in social work gets heavy,
Yeah.
and so you need to have a healthy sense of humor. I think that pretty much covers the fireside chat questions that I had. But what I was going to do is take a look at
Well, let me
what is in the chat.
Yeah, let me just add one more thing if I can, because I'll forget. I have this absent-minded professor syndrome. But I do think that when I said earlier that the clinical aspects being a distinctive, I should have expanded on that a bit and said that we really work hard to listen to the field of practice so that we know what's going on. And so it's been a very conscious decision on our part to not just lean into the clinical part, but to actually reflect what the employers out there are looking for. So trauma-informed practice is a course that we created intentionally, knowing that there's a greater interest in that. That the sessionals that we select to teach a lot of those clinical courses are literally practicing in those fields. So you're not just getting the book knowledge or whatever. We're trying to make sure that whoever's teaching this is giving you the direct hands-on connection to what you would be doing out in practice. Anyways, that's what I forgot to say earlier.
Okay, no, that's good. And I mean, we have a nice variety of faculty as well, and sessional instructors with a variety of backgrounds and practical experience that really rounds out everything. So, yeah, it gives you access to expertise in a number of different areas.
For sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to, do you want to take a look at some of the questions and take a stab at a few of them? Some of them are procedural, which I'm going to probably ask the admissions counselors to take note of which student has asked which question and maybe contact them one-on-one on some of the procedural stuff. But, if you want to talk about, let's see.
Well, I'm seeing something here by, is it Williams? Williams, FA?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what's the mode of study? I don't know if you answered that already, but.
No, we haven't answered that yet.
Yeah, so basically, I think what the question is being asked is what are the different modalities, maybe? How it's being taught?
Yeah.
So here's what I can offer. I think COVID taught us some lessons, all of us. And so we were able to sort of discover that there are ways to do this. Some of it, at least, can be done virtually. Some of it can be done online in that way. We also have some static sort of asynchronous deliveries, DE versions. But we're also looking at some of the more clinical pieces where we're asking some difficult questions and saying, is it possible to do all of this online or not? And so what we're doing these days is that we tend to run, or the next year, I guess, what we're doing is, I'm not sure if we have announced this yet or not, but when we have clinical courses, we have sections. So we like to say, one of the advantages of coming here is we're a small school, so you get to know everybody, and also your faculty is your advisor, so you get that too. But what you might then bump up into is, because we're smaller, is that we don't always have multiple sections of courses.
Yeah.
So, but when we're doing clinical, for example, what we're floating this time around is we're trying to do where we have one version that is on ground, it's called, where people come in person, and then another one that's going to be virtual, where people are doing it like we are here right now.
Okay.
So that's a way we're trying to do this, because there are some students recognized who would prefer to do this virtually, and then there are other students who really learn better when they're in a face-to-face environment. So we've tried to sort of find a way to do that. And then, of course, if it looks like people can't attend at all, then like, let's say somebody actually does end up getting sick and can't come to class, then we try and find a workaround, like, for example, either beaming them into the classroom because we have the technology to do that. There's also something called hybrid, where some courses are literally done that way. Like I'm teaching a class on Mondays right now where about roughly half of the class is there in person and the other is coming in over the smart board. And so there's different ways that can be done. At this point, we're not really, like, we have the occasional evening courses, but we sort of stayed away from the weekends. And that was part of because of surveys that we ran. Every a couple of years, we do a program review, and we were hearing from the student body that they would rather not have it be done that way. One thing that we did do is years ago is that we expanded our classrooms to be 3 hours in length. So what that means is that in other universities, you might be going somewhere and you have to go 2 days a week. Like, let's say on Tuesday and Thursday, it's the same class, but you go twice. It's all in one shot. You're just there for one time a week. And that's already been something that students have said that they really appreciate, because it does help open up their schedule more when they don't have to plan that way.
Yeah, I know there was one question about what does a typical day look like, or how busy is your schedule? And I guess it depends on what courses you take, what year you're in, how many courses you take. There is no typical day in the life of a social work student, but definitely practicum is full-time, is it not, Alex?
Well, again, it depends.
Okay.
So what I use, when I call the vanilla version, which is sort of the standard, is 2 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Okay.
So you do 16 hours of in-field practice, and you're doing it in the fall and in the winter. And but we've also have different variations on that theme. So we've had some students, for example, who, and I'm not sure if this is what Williams is also asking, but there are some students who say, well, you know what, I have too many work commitments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the courses first, and then I'm going to do this. And maybe I can take a leave of absence from my employer and just kind of knock it out, with the hope that maybe I don't even come back to my employer, because that might end up being because I'm there so much, because that version is called either a fall block, or it's called a concentrated placement, where you're doing both the first year and the second year all in 1 year, every single day, like a full-time job.
Okay.
And then they really get to know you, and might even offer you that position after the fact.
Yeah, I know anecdotally that most of our social workers get scooped up. In fact, when I get calls from employers asking for social workers, we have a hard time even trying to find somebody who doesn't have a job. So the amount of practicum does work to your benefit. The students benefit in a couple of ways, by giving you a lot of hands-on experience in the field, and also exposing you to prospective employers.
And I'd say in terms of layout, so because of the fact that our vanilla option, and I hate to say this because vanilla gets a bad rap, it's not necessarily boring, right? Just some people like it. But anyways, so the standard version, because it's 2 days a week, it's invariably set for Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so what we've done, especially for upper level courses, that we make sure that courses are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that they don't interfere. Now, granted, there may be like let's say we've got a mindfulness course, or a crisis intervention course, like something that's an elective that we have a sessional teaching. Then they're going to want to maybe teach this on a Tuesday or Thursday evening, and we open that up and say, sure, like for that we will do that. But we try to avoid the daytime Tuesdays and Thursdays, unless it's like a introduction course to social work where people aren't in field yet. We will try and avoid those.
Gotcha. Haven't had a question about, is there paid placements? No, there's not. These are all non-paid practicums. If someone's already working in social services, can you do the placement there, Alex?
Yes, but I'm also going to say that it's not just straightforward yes, right? There's a process. Part of the reason why we don't have paid practicum positions is because of the conflict of interest that can emerge. like imagine your boss, you know what I mean? Like if they give you a bad review and you don't get your degree, like they're not maybe invested in doing that because they don't want to hire someone else. So they might not give you the, so in other words, you're not going to necessarily get a fair shake either way. So what we usually say is, and having gone through it myself, actually, for my master's in the States, I had to go somewhere else within the organization and show that those 16 hours were not under my boss.
Okay.
So that I could demonstrate that. So there's ways we would want to show that if that's what you want to do. And sometimes it is appealing because it's easier sometimes to find something within your own employer. But again, we have a field education coordinator, and she would spend some time with you to also make sure that it would fit what we would describe as, you know, social work related, you know, field opportunities that we can evaluate you for. So yeah, that's my long-winded way of saying yes on the at your employer's place kind of thing.
But yes, but okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're at 7:31, and I know we'd build this as a 1-hour session, so I'm going to keep to that. I'm fairly certain that the admissions counselors will have jotted down some of the procedural questions, like does your resume need to be 1 page? No, it doesn't. You know, those kinds of things, so that we can get that, yeah, that they can get back and let you guys know, let everyone know, sorry, what the answers are. And I'm going to thank you, Dr. Alex Sawatsky, for joining us on this, the first social work info session that we have run. We run them for pre-social work, and we thought, why don't we run them for after degree and transfer in high school? Because the questions to be asked as well. So thank you to Beth for being here. Thank you to Eliza for being here. Thank you to Nicolette for being here. Thank you to all of you for being here. Our world is a better place because of you and because of your desire to further your education. And we really look forward to seeing you around the halls of Booth University College and in downtown Winnipeg, where we need to be, where the world needs us. And we look forward to helping you all in the future. So take care, have a good evening, stay warm for those of you who are in Winnipeg, stay safe, don't go out on the roads.
And if you have any more questions, I'm sorry, you're out of time and you can't find out. Actually, no, of course not. You feel free to let admissions know, and they can always pass it on to me as well. I'm happy to answer any further questions. And yeah, everyone have a good afternoon or evening, rather.
Take care. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye.